Long haul, it affects 65 million people worldwide. That is 65 million people with this diagnosis. So, what exactly does that mean? And how does it relate to POTS and dysautonomia?
Well, long haul and all those other words, that's a lot of big words, and it is a very complicated topic. So today what we're going to do is we're going to unveil the truth around this. We're going to be talking about what long haul really is, and a lot of you don't even know what the heck POTS and dysautonomia is and how it's connected. So we're going to break that wide open. Here we go, everybody, today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this Transform Table Talk Live. I am Anna Manuel alongside Dr. Maggie Yu. Hi, Dr. Maggie.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Maggie Yu. I'm a functional medicine physician and peak health strategist. And today, what we're going to be talking about is long haul COVID. And yes, we're going to tie those other big words in. But before we get started, I would love everybody who's coming in right now to blow my chat up. Okay. You guys know we love to talk with you. I don't like talking at you. And we're going to be looking today at topics around COVID. Long haul COVID, as well as POTS and dysautonomia. We have a lot of alumni that are jumping in. If you're an alumni of any of our programs, type in chat alumni. And if any of you know anyone that is suffering from any of the diagnoses we just named, I would love to know where you're watching from and give me a little history. Tell me a little bit about what's going on with you. Now, here's the thing. If you are watching on Facebook, if you're watching on LinkedIn, I'm going to invite all of you guys to hop over to YouTube, actually, and watch us there at our YouTube channel. Hop over there because we have some limitations in YouTube on Facebook. For example, we cannot stream into our Facebook group, even though there's 100,000 of you in the Facebook group. So I'm going to ask a member of my team right now to try to stream into the Facebook group. But if you're watching this anywhere, even if you're in the Facebook group, click the link, go watch it on YouTube, click subscribe, ring the bell. Every time I go live, you're going to be notified.
And Dr. Maggie, we're talking all about long haul and what does it mean? And you're going to really educate us today about it because I know since its inception, when the pandemic began, you have become an expert in this. And you really actually were an expert in it before it even existed because the symptoms of long haul are very similar to many of the ailments that you have been dealing and curing and fixing people of for years and years and years now.
The question really we should be asking as a medical profession is that, there is a deeper question. I'm going to tell you what the question we really should be asking, but I am going to tell you that some of you and many of you in my audience knows that my long-term work dealing with POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. The other thing, POTS is in the family of symptoms that are related to a bigger family of illnesses called dysautonomia, where your nervous system is dysregulated. So there's a huge relationship between long haul and these two diagnoses, and we're going to connect the two today. That being said, I want to give some background about long haul. Okay. In 2024, what we found is that there's over 65 million people worldwide that have the diagnosis of long haul, which is residual symptoms after having the big C, okay? And that's diagnosed. Now, how many of you know after you had the big C had symptoms that were residual? And we'll go through listing some of those symptoms, but the symptoms can be fatigue, okay? It can be brain fog. It can be dizziness, difficulty with balance, positional changes, headache, numbness and tingling, joint pain, digestion and gut symptoms, worsening of any of the other previous chronic health symptoms that you have, you name it. And there are all these other symptoms with long haul, even that people don't realize about, that I touch on many of my videos. It has an impact on hormonal health of individuals for up to 18 months that I've seen. So if any of you had the big C and had some residual symptoms, you're in the family we call long haul. So if you have long haul, type it in chat. Tell us what symptoms you're having, right? So in my estimation, a lot of people don't even realize that they qualify for this diagnosis called long haul. So I think looking at the people that come out and reach out to us, which is a couple hundred people a week, at least I would say 2/3 of the population that actually have long haul symptoms, which means their symptoms started or got worse because of the big C, aren't diagnosed. So if 65 million are the people that we know are diagnosed with it, that means almost 250, 250 million people
Are dealing with this.
are dealing with long haul.
And you can see the comment section really is
Yeah.
lighting up here, Dr. Maggie, of people saying, yes, I have all of the above symptoms that you just mentioned. Many people going in and saying, in fact, just highlighting this comment here, I feel like my body is not my own. It operates how it wants, when it wants, constantly glitching and short circuiting. And that's kind of really an interesting way to describe what so many people are dealing with this as
Yeah.
well.
And what bothers me the most about long haul is there is no treatment. Number one, not only is it hard for people to get a diagnosis, there is no effective treatment. Okay. And we're going to talk more about that. Kayla, love it. Okay. What I would like to do is I call long haul POTS dysautonomia one of the many invisible diseases, which means that we all look normal and we never realize who really has it and how severe of an impact it is. So, Anne, today,
Yes. Well, we actually have a really interesting case study and somebody that we're going to bring on here and introduce that has been dealing with long haul and pot symptoms for the last 4 years, just since
4 years.
start of the pandemic now, was diagnosed with the big C. And then from there on, got long haul, was not able to recover. I think you're going to really find him interesting and his story relatable. Please have us welcome at this time Mr. Joel Fram. And Joel lives in New York City, and he is the musical director, conductor of the hit Broadway musical Merrily We Roll Along. And we are actually playing some video now showcasing, what is this, Joel? You during a rehearsal?
Yes, this is me conducting rather violently, actually, it looks like. Um, this is me conducting a rehearsal called a Sitzprobe, which is when the singers get together and hear the orchestra for the very first time. So they've never heard what the full orchestra sounds like, and the orchestra has never heard them. We get in a room together and everyone sings and plays. And it's a very, very joyful experience, that one.
It looks that way. And for those who are unfamiliar with the cast, we just saw some of the big names, if you could mention them. Oh, Dr.
Wait,
Maggie.
wait. I need to fangirl the situation here, okay? If anybody who's been following me forever knows that I am a huge fan of number one, music, but number two, musical theater. And so I am telling you guys that this latest rendition, it's been 2 years, hasn't it, of Merrily We Roll Along is the best.
Yeah.
It's the best. And there is every reason why it is nominated for how many Tonys? 7.
Congratulations on that. That is huge.
Thank you.
One of my favorite actors of all time is in this production. My son and I both love him. So many people do. Jonathan Groff. Of course, he's not the only one in this production.
So I was in New York and I just saw Merrily like literally a couple of weeks ago, and Joel was supposed to I don't know, meet me or something or hook me up in some way, but it turned out he had to go to something like, oh my gosh, a Tony nomination ceremony or something.
Just one of those little dinner award ceremonies, no big deal.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, right. But here's the thing. You should be, you have been in the past couple of years you should be at the peak of your career. I mean, this is creative, fun, genius, deliciousness, all the people around you and everything. But yet you have had this silent struggle for 4 years.
Yes, it's true.
Joel, I want to hear about, what has it been that you've been dealing with the last 4 years?
So I was in the middle of conducting another Stephen Sondheim musical called Company. We were in previews when the pandemic really hit New York. And then a few days later, everything shut down, including Broadway, of course. I had COVID the day before the shutdown. So I was one of the very, very early people to get it. Again, as we all know, the world shut down for a good long time. So I really had nothing to do but sit at home and hope I didn't get even more sick than I was.
Mm-hmm.
It took me about 3 weeks to recover. And I almost felt normal. So I started trying to rebuild my body a bit with yoga, with cardiovascular exercises, and I made it through about 3 weeks. And then one day it was like someone just flipped a switch. My body just said,
nope.
No. And I was hit by like really, really crushing fatigue. And I could not understand what was happening. I lost strength in my left arm. Suddenly, I had trouble picking up a glass. And we were all, I think, monitoring our heart rates then rather
Yeah.
obsessively. But my resting heart rate was somewhere in like 111. And that was at rest when normally it had been about 60. So I had a suspicion something was wrong. And I think long haul, in my case, is a story of luck and privilege, by which I mean I was very lucky. I knew a choreographer who I had done a show with, who was married to a doctor who worked at Mount Sinai,
Mhm.
who hooked me up with the Mount Sinai long haul rehab clinic.
Hmm.
I say it's a matter of privilege because I had insurance to help me through that. I had a sister who had gone to medical school and who is a cardiologist, so I
She's the
had
most
her to.
wonderful cardiologist there is. She's one of my very best
Shout
friends.
out.
That's how
Yay!
we know Joel. But even with a cardiologist in the family, right? And so many
Yeah.
people, and I know Dr. Maggie will talk about this too, is a cardiologist who you need to see for POTS and dysautonomia and long haul. And Dr. Maggie shaking her head, no, it is not. And I know your sister is desperate to help so many of her patients as well who are struggling with this. And so you had the medical hookups and so many good connections to try to get you started. But yet here you are, it sounds like 4 years later, still struggling.
Well, if there is an article about my journey in the New York Times, should you
Mhm.
choose to Google it. But the long and the short of the article is at first, I went to the Mount Sinai long haul COVID clinic. And that was a series of doctors who got together doing their absolute best to try
Sure.
and help cardiologists, pulmonologists, neurologists, general medicine physicians. Everyone tried their best, but nobody really had the solution, and no circle of treatment intersected with any other circle of treatment.
Boom. Boom. Put a pin on that, everybody listening. Keep going, Joel.
Um, but when I got to the long haul rehab clinic that Dr. Petrino runs and that Jenna Tosto, who was the person who took over my case, then we decided that the best thing we could do was to try to build back my body's ability to tolerate aerobic exercise
Mhm.
and to try to regulate my orthostatic dysfunction.
Hold
Maggie, what
on.
is orthostatic dysfunction?
For everybody else out there, what it means is that with certain positional changes, whether it's from lying down and sitting up, or sitting up and stepping up, or just laying down, you get dizzy. And patients with long haul and people with POTS, the name POTS means postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. It means with positional changes, your heart can go fast or slow. And so when someone says orthostatic, all they're saying is they're trying to sound super smart and saying, when my position changes, I get kind of dizzy, or their heart rate or blood pressure changes. Boom, here we go. Orthostatic, back to you, Joel.
So when I finally found Dr. Petrino and Jenna, I had been suffering with crushing fatigue. I couldn't stay awake to read a page of text. I would fall asleep reading the same sentence 3 times. I would be having lunch with my husband and fall asleep on him at the table.
Oh.
Normal day-to-day activities were almost impossible. I had massive headaches. I had swelling in my joints.
Joint
Um,
pain. Put a pin on that,
I
everybody.
put a
Mhm.
pin on that. I had
Mhm.
really unpleasant tingling in my feet when I tried to
Mhm.
sleep at night. Um, I was I also should say, I think one of the great missed symptoms that people don't really talk about is the anxiety and the depression and
Mhm.
the panic disorder that is associated with long COVID. When I found out that we were going to reopen company in October of 2021, I absolutely did not think I was going to be able to resume my job, my life as I knew it, the way I earned a living. And I was already suffering from a panic anxiety disorder as it was just trying to deal with long COVID and its lifetime implications.
Mhm.
But that really sent me into a tailspin, the
Mhm.
sudden pressure that I would have to be functional by October. I will say that finding Jenna and Dr. Petrino was really helpful. They, I think, understood more of the dysautonomia POTS aspect to this disease. And we started on, Dr. Maggie, you'll have to step in here, on what we called a modified Levine protocol. But the protocol was designed to very, very gradually reteach my body to have a sympathetic response and then a parasympathetic response, or to say that in a slightly more simple way, a more reductive way, to become more tolerant of aerobic exercise without blowing out my energy and fatiguing me completely.
I'm going to put a pause right there because he's throwing out some big words called POTS and dysautonomia. And for someone dealing with long haul, that you may not understand what we just said.
Yeah.
So what the symptoms we talk about with long haul, especially when you're talking about being really fatigued, having the brain fog, the anxiety, the panic, the swelling, the joint pain, but especially also the positional changes, where when you change positions, your heart rate can go really fast or really slow, and blood pressure can go high and then low. This is exactly the same as a diagnosis we call POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And POTS belong in a family of disorders where it's a nervous system disorder. And I just want to make it really super simple. We have a fight or flight nervous system called sympathetic nervous system. Fight or flight, sympathetic, okay? And we have a calm and rest, and that's parasympathetic. They're supposed to balance each other out, okay? And so for people who, let's say it was not associated with long haul, they have this, and there is so much sympathetic firing, fight or flight, that this parasympathetic tone is really low, so it doesn't go work to balance it. That's when you get these heart rate changes and blood pressure changes. Now, we know for a fact that COVID, for some reason, I know what the reasons are, but people don't understand how, but COVID will trigger this imbalance of this parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. So in fact, long haul COVID symptoms are nearly identical, like 90% identical to a patient with POTS or dysautonomia. And more within the last year and a half, the medical profession is becoming more and more aware of this. And they're starting to realize that there are people with long haul now are getting another diagnosis of POTS on top of it. I don't know if that happened to you or they just kept calling it long haul.
Well, it's interesting. As time has gone by, and of course, I have been in the clinic now for 3.5 years. Um, I I have had what we like to call the golden workup, by which I think that's a polite way of saying the $1 billion workup.
Workup.
Yeah. I mean, I have signed up for every research project I can. I have had MRIs, PET MRIs, 3T
Yeah.
MRIs. I've had, cognitive tests. I've had physical tests. I've had orthostatic table tests where they
Oh,
tilt you up and down.
those are not fun.
No, those are a little dizzying. It's
Mhm.
true. But as time has gone by, more and more things have come to light in the research. And every time I have felt slightly discouraged or very discouraged, Jenna and Dr. Petrino have said, every day we know more, every day we know more. People are looking into mitochondrial health. People are looking into how to stimulate the vagus nerve, which may have some effect on the parasympathetic nervous system. People are looking at serotonin levels, or people are looking at the presence of either the virus or fragments of the virus in deep tissue, which could be causing GI distress, which could be causing parasympathetic nervous system problems. They're all linked. And so, actually, although I wish someone would just say to me, "Oh, it turns out the cure for long haul COVID is blueberries, or more likely vagus nerve stimulation." At the moment, it's not blueberries or vagus nerve stimulation,
No.
but we're on a road to finding what it might be.
Well, and I love that you're getting little baby steps forward, but wouldn't it be nice to put this all behind you? It's like you said, you were on that particular protocol. Rhiannon was on that protocol as well and hasn't seen any positive changes.
Yeah.
And clearly you have still, it sounds like, a long way to go, Joel.
Well, I had 3 goals. I wanted to be able to accomplish as much on a bad day as I could on a good day, by which I mean conduct my show, conduct company, and now conduct merrily. I wanted to be the only person who knew if I was having a bad day or a good day.
Mm.
And I didn't want to change my responsibilities for the show. In other words, say, fine, I'll do 1 show a week and let someone else do 7 and call it a day. Now, I realize I am very lucky. I will just say to the person on the chat who tried the Levine protocol, I
Mhm.
want to be very specific. I tried a modified Levine protocol. This is for Ms. Goss, who just chimed in, by which I mean I spent weeks doing simple leg lifts, like for about a minute, just leg lifts lying on the ground, and then spending 2 or 3 minutes doing a pattern of breathing called stasis breathing,
Yep.
which was designed to lower the heart rate after the very, very gentle aerobic exercise had raised it. Then I went into chair exercises for weeks. Then I went into walking exercises. I finally graduated into recumbent bike exercises. Always the same pattern: raise the heart rate, then in a rest position, lower the heart rate again, and then repeat.
Got it.
So this has been a way of just very gradually building up my aerobic tolerance. And
Thank
it's
you.
taken 3 years.
Taken 3 years. Well, and we had just highlighted this comment, Dr. Maggie, saying the Transform program and you have
Yeah.
actually given this person their life back after long haul. And it looks like probably they're talking about mast cell activation syndrome as well.
Well,
So you
mhm.
have figured out some things as it relates to long haul that others have not. And I wonder if you want to touch on that.
I do want to touch on this. I mean, there's a lot of things. I was listening to the story that sounds like literally 50% of the people we talk to every week. And for me, like I sort of stumbled upon long haul being an expert in POTS and dysautonomia as people were going through COVID and actually having these symptoms. It was like the exact same symptoms. And I think it was so interesting listening to, I think if anything, long haul has actually progressed the understanding of POTS and dysautonomia for some of the mainstream doctors out there. Because what you're talking about is things that I have been working on for the last 5-6 years with POTS. And there are pieces of this. And I love how he's saying, well, is it just about the balancing of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system? No, it's not. And in fact, if that's the only thing you work on, it is really slow and it can be awful. And there were other pieces that Joel actually alluded to about talking about how he's understanding now that COVID, okay, long haul guys, there's this particular virus impacts mitochondria. There's mitochondria in every cell of your body. Now, why doesn't every cult do this? Why does long haul do this? Well, are there super infections? Are there super viruses? The answer is yes. And one of the things that I've really recognized in long haul is that when you have a super virus or any sort of super infection, it can incorporate, viruses actually can incorporate into your own cells, making your own cells replicate the virus, right? And it can actually incorporate and change DNA. It changes how your cells look as well. Okay. And it doesn't just, it's not an upper respiratory, ear, nose, and throat infection, everybody. It is a super infection in terms of the fact that it loves the gut. It loves like blood vessels, brain cells, it's not, and joints. And because some infections actually change the way our cells look, it can trigger what we call autoimmune issues. Okay. And to really put it simply, like autoimmunity is where your immune system, okay, everybody, if we have a healthy immune system, it's supposed to look at a germ outside your body and says, you're a germ and I'm going to kill you. And the other job it's supposed to do is look at a cancer cell in you and say, you're a germ and I'm going to kill you. That's a healthy immune system. Someone with autoimmunity, their immune system looks at one of their cells and makes a mistake and says, "Your cell, you're foreign, and I'm going to kill you."
Mm.
So let me give you an example. If someone, let's say, has rheumatoid arthritis, well, they think part of their joint area is a germ, and they try to kill it. So then the joints swell and hurt, and it gets damaged, right? So what I specialize in autoimmunity as well. And what we found was a lot of people were flaring with their autoimmune disease after the big C. And then the other thing is people who never had autoimmunity, but had a family history of some of this stuff going on, came up with new diagnoses of things like POTS, mast cell, histamine intolerance, joint, all these irritable bowel syndrome, depression, anxiety, brain fog, right? You name it. So what I'm seeing is that this particular type of infection is a super infection that can infect multiple body parts, and it's triggering your own immune system to start attacking itself. This is also why not everyone gets long haul. Why do certain individuals get long haul and certain don't? Right? And it's because there are some genetic history and markers that we're missing. Because I noticed that people in family that have autoimmune diagnosis have a much higher rate of big C morbidity and long haul.
Mm.
So remember early on in the pandemic, Joel, when they were like, diabetics get it way worse.
Yeah.
Diabetes is an autoimmune disease.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There is a big connection between, so individuals I find that have long haul, when you start to trace their own history or you start to trace their own family history, you start realizing there's an autoimmune component to this. There were some warning signs here. There's some individuals who are going to be more vulnerable to it than somebody else. So
And I think I see that, even now, 4 years on, I mean, and I'm a conductor and a pianist by trade, but, swelling in the joints and pain in these joints and fingers that lock and have to be snapped open. I mean, that all started post-COVID.
Here's the problem. We had a pandemic, we had this happen, and then the main symptoms that came up for a lot of people, some of them were brain and neurological, then people were sent to a neurologist who had no way of, like, you could get MRI'd up the wazoo. You could get every brain test, blood test up the wazoo. That doesn't mean you know how to diagnose or treat this problem. Okay. Number two, cardiac symptoms. So blood pressure or heart rate goes up and down, send them to the cardiologist.
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of tools does a cardiologist have to diagnose, treat, or deal with this? Right. And I'll tell you, like, if one of the symptoms, how many people out there, type in chat, if one of your symptoms was heart rate changes, you felt like heart rate or blood pressure changes. So Joel, if your heart rate went fast, or fast and slow, the number one treatment are medications that slow the heart. Okay. So it would be what we call beta blockers, and cardiologists use this all the time. Bless my cardiologist friends. Right. But what do these medications do is they can slow a fast heart rate and bring it lower, but they also have a side effect of lowering blood pressure. Remember, there's a blood pressure up and down problem, right? That's another thing. And the other part, Joel mentioned, what about the panic? What about the mental health impact of having COVID? Some of the medications do have side effects that can affect and cause either depression or anxiety, right? Peggy's saying, and Peggy, you're a nurse, and I've worked with Peggy. So Peggy had tachycardia when sitting and standing while taking the cardiac medication. And so what happened during the pandemic is we had somebody like Joel, who's had all the connections and, luckily got into the healthcare system. But still, where does he get sent is a lot of times to either cardiologists or to neurologists who aren't really well equipped to deal with this emerging mysterious symptoms that are all over the place. And if you throw cardiac meds at this problem, it doesn't necessarily help. I would say at least 95% of individuals, it's of no help to give cardiac medication. Right. And then I don't know, Joel, for you, did you go see a neurologist, and what kind of treatment did you get on this from the neurology side of it?
Well, I just want to say first that from the cardiology side, what was kind of frustrating was that many of my tests were coming back normal. Right?
This is not a cardiac problem, Joel.
That's right. And then I had, is it an EMG, I believe, where they test the nerves in your arm?
Normal.
And the EMG absolutely came back normal.
Because it's actually not a nerve problem in the peripheral nerves, actually.
That's right. The cardiologist put me on propranolol, And I will
Mhm.
say, and I see several people saying it on your chat, which is that
Mhm.
I didn't know the side effects of propranolol, and my fatigue from on a scale of 1 to 10 went to about 13 or 14. The fatigue was so much worse. And
Yeah.
actually, again, just in the sheer luck of things, my sister asked what I was taking. I told her. She, of course, is a cardiologist and said propranolol can cause terrible fatigue. If you get off of it, it's not going to cure your fatigue, but at least you'll go back into the window that you've been suffering as opposed to outside of the box.
But then you're still left with no help. You know, you what do you do then? And Dr. Maggie, I'm watching some of these comments come in. Um,
And Bex here, someone we worked with, got
Mhm.
mast cell as a result of post COVID. And mast cell and histamine is severe allergic reactions. Literally, it could be environmental, food, or no reason, right? And for Bex, she was able to stop needing her EpiPen. Heart rate is regular again. So this is a solvable problem. I think the point here is between Peggy, Bex, and what I want to say is about this is, yes, this is a big problem, but we're sending people to everywhere to try to get a diagnosis, to get the golden or $1 million workup. And even when they get a diagnosis or they don't, they're being sent to doctors who really have very limited tools to deal with this. Again, these are the problems that are solvable. This is my thing, why I wanted to bring Joel on. 4 years he's dealt with this, and this is typical. Most of the people that we know dealing with long haul have had it more than a year. More than a year. And think about the kind of impact that has had. And he didn't even think he could go back to direct for company. Right? I mean, this is a serious emotional, financial, physical toll that this has had, right? Exactly. And this is a solvable problem. And one of the things, Joel, you had said was people just weren't putting it together. I went to all these different specialists, but they weren't talking to each other.
Yes.
Big,
Yes.
big problem. And that's why I was like, put a pin in that. Because to me, okay, there's so much I will have to say about it that put a pin in this. I have a lot to say about this, how to fix it. But I have some things that I'm sure hasn't been hit in what he just said. And Peggy, actually, one of the people that I've worked with before, hundreds of people we've worked with this, mentioned something really critical. So, Joel, one of the things I've noticed, because I do treat, hundreds and hundreds of people with these exact same symptoms, is certain viruses like COVID actually shuts down hormone production and really interferes with hormone production of multiple glands in our body for anywhere from 3 to 18 months.
Mm.
And this is something, and I don't know Joel's history with this, and I will ask him to answer once I say this. Almost, I would say 99% of individuals coming to us with whether it's POTS, dysautonomia, mast cell, or long haul have never fully had their hormones evaluated at all. And when I say a full hormonal evaluation, your hormones are made everywhere. So we have thyroid hormones, we have ovarian or testicular, the sex hormones, we have adrenal hormones. And in Peggy's case, this is huge. The adrenals, it's a gland that medical doctors pretty much ignore, Joel. And so the adrenal gland make hormones that are like cortisol, DHEA, some of these hormones, but it also makes adrenaline, norepinephrine and epinephrine. Epinephrine's adrenaline. And unfortunately, I see huge problems with the adrenal glands in every individual with this set of symptoms, but yet cardiologists, neurologists, and all your medical doctors have no training in how to evaluate the adrenals. Not to even mention the sex hormones, the thyroid hormones, right? Or even your brain hormones. Yes, your brain makes hormones, right? So this is why, and here's something to blow your mind. You know how they came out with all these studies that said that vitamin D is super helpful in treating people with the big C or long haul. Do you know why? Take a guess. Do you know, Joel? Everybody in the chat who's my student teachers, okay? Vitamin D studies, thousands of them have said super helpful for the big C or long haul. Why do you think? What is so special about vitamin D based on what I just said? Why? Does anyone know?
Does it promote hormone production?
Vitamin D is a hormone, smarty pants.
Aha!
And you were saying your sister got all the smarts in the family.
Well, there you go. Just proved it.
Yes, and so it is a hormone, and I know you have to run soon, Joel, as well. He's got about 5 minutes, Dr. Maggie, before he has to go conduct the show for the evening. So
okay, all right. So what I'm going to say is that I look at Joel's case and at any one of your cases, and for me, this is a solvable problem. What I want to do is I'm going to stick around for longer, and we have a lot of chat questions and stuff. But what I want to do is this, Joel, your case is classic, and so what I like to do is I would like to offer a workshop for anybody out there who's watching or they know somebody, where I'm actually going to take maybe even Joel's case if he's able to show up. I'm thinking about 2 weeks. We're setting up a workshop where I'm literally going to be cracking these cases. And because there's so many pieces that are involved. So I'm going to invite Joel back. I'm also going to be inviting Peggy, Bex, any of the people that we've worked with that successfully have turned it around. And I'm inviting every single one of you who have, let me put this up. And I'm inviting every single one of you who's watching, who knows somebody. We're going to be uncovering the truth. We're going to be doing a workshop Thursday, June 13th. I did 3 p.m. Joel, I'm hoping you can make it. If you can't, we'll see on that one.
Okay.
There's a QR code out there for anybody. I'm going to spend time here. I'm going to spend a couple hours because what I want to do is I actually want to be able to, in a community setting, see every one of you here. I want you to be able to share your symptoms, your story. I want to be able to pull cases out, whether that's Joel's case or your case, straight off from the audience. And I really want to share and work through it because there's hormonal components here. Joel even mentioned gut and digestion. And I'm going to tell you, the big C infects the gut. And I don't know if you know, Joel, but I am Dr. Digestion. There is something, and I'm going to tell you guys this, right? Put this down as a note, everybody. Okay. Hot tip. Okay. I have never met someone with long haul or with POTS or dysautonomia who didn't have a horrible digestion problem first.
And look at Marissa's comment here, somebody that you've worked with. Yes, I did heal from POTS. Somebody was asking if she did. Dealing with hormones and gut as the big ones, just like you just mentioned, Dr. Maggie.
Boom.
And believes that she will continue to get better and better now.
Yeah, this is a fixable problem, Joel. Have you ever heard someone tell you that?
No. I have to say, I've heard lots of very optimistic people saying we are on the road.
We're not on the road.
Heard someone say that it's fixable? No, I haven't.
In fact, I eat it for breakfast. Show me some lunch or dinner, please.
Okay.
So awesome. I don't want to, so I know you have to go, Joel. I wanted to thank you for putting a face on an invisible illness and for providing all the history points because I don't know about you. How many of you guys typed in chat? There was something in Joel's story that resonated with you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And there's something about his journey that really resonated with you to realize, yes, I tried to do that. I tried to do that. I did that. I would love for you to write in chat and give Joel a big boom in chat and thank him for coming in here. I'm hoping he's able to join us for our actual workshop coming up in about 10 days or so. Consuelo, yes, she's currently in the program and she has found answers no one could give. Thankful for Dr. Oh, Consuelo, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And Consuelo mentioned her kids were having some similar symptoms. This isn't just an adult thing. There's a lot of kids with long haul right now. So
yeah.
Joel, thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you for being here, Joel. We really appreciate it. And we hope you have a wonderful show tonight.
Great. I'm coming back to New York in September. You, me, in a room.
Totally. Right. Goodbye. Thank you.
Joel.
Bye. There he is.
All right. Okay. So
Dr. Maggie, you want to continue? Let's, he had to run, but there's much more I think that you could say about this topic.
Yeah, I really do. I mean, we have a huge audience here. I'm seeing tons of comments coming in from YouTube. By the way, if you're not watching on YouTube right now, we're going to add a link to YouTube so you can jump over there. Make sure you go to YouTube, click the link to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified because I am going live multiple times a week. We're going to be bringing more and more interviews. We're going to be shining a light on a lot of these invisible illnesses that are not mystery or unicorn illnesses. They are solvable. Okay. So Donna, thank you. Boom to Joel, right? That was awesome.
Well, and I think it was so nice for him to be able to hear from somebody finally for the first time that this is a solvable problem. And I know he's not alone in watching this right now and hearing that, somebody out there struggling with this and thinking, how am I ever going to feel well again? How am I ever going to stop dealing with plaguing symptoms? But to hear you say, I've got this. We know how to fix this. And it's much more that can be, boiled down into this live tonight. But that is why you're hosting that additional workshop.
So I'm going to list some resources for you guys right now. Okay. So number one, I actually have a multi-part POTS series because this is probably the 10th live training that I've done on POTS, dysautonomia, right, and long haul. So we have. I'm gonna if any of you guys want the multi-part training that's free, it's like 6 or 7 of the biggest $1 million golden training that I did on POTS. Type multi-part training in chat, and our team will get it to you. Number one, you can just go and watch my training series around POTS. Number one, you can do that. Number two is if you want to, I want to actually get my hands on you. Okay, let me get my hands on you. And I'm going to be hosting a live workshop in about 13 days, in about 2 weeks, everybody. So scan that QR code, go ahead and register. You have to register to join. There will be no replay because I'm going to be working live with you guys. So go ahead and register for that workshop to interact with me live, because there's so many pieces to this. And then the number 3, really importantly, is, don't take my word for it. Like Joel has heard a lot of people who's optimistic, who says they're on the road. I'm not on the road. Okay. We got answers here, but you don't have to take my word for it. I want you to believe the words of people who've actually been successful. So thank you, Bex, for jumping in, Peggy for jumping in. If there are any other alumni out there that I've worked with, whether it's in the hormone program, the food mapping masterclass, or our main program. And I did see one of the questions was about, can the hormone program be helpful for POTS or long haul? The answer is yes, yes, and hell yes. Can the food mapping program alone be helpful? The answer is yes. And the reason is there are pieces, right? There are pieces. And for sure, I already highlighted the fact that there is a big hormone piece. And for sure, I already highlighted that it infects the gut. And there's a big, and Joel even said, regular doctors are learning more and more that there's a digestion piece to this. But not only that, I'm going to add this to the mix. There is a food sensitivity issue with this. This is why, how many of you out there with MAS or histamine intolerance, mast cell activation, MCAS, and how many of you have histamine intolerance and either got diagnosed or started after the big C, or it got worse?
Yeah.
Type in chat.
And I know Bex had dealt with that, and we had highlighted that as well. And she's not alone. We've talked to so many alumni and so many people that you've worked with that have really struggled. And that's a tough one. I mean, doctors will throw their hands in the air and say, we don't know what else to do for you when it comes to mast cell.
Yeah, I do. And because just like we're talking about, is there a hormonal component? Is there a digestion component? Is there a food sensitivity component? Is there an autoimmune component? Right?
I love what Chrissy says. Forget a road. Dr. Maggie has her own highway. Back on track in weeks, not years.
Chrissy, love you. Thank you so much. So importantly is we have case studies. I want you guys to know that we have tons of case studies of people we've worked with long haul, POTS, dysautonomia, mast cell, histamine, right? Just like I work with many other diagnoses as well. But I will tell you guys, just in the last 2 weeks, I've been on 4 different podcasts with the hosts that are in wellness and health and in the medical field, asking me to speak about POTS and dysautonomia. So that's why I was like, when I heard what was going on Joel, I'm like, let's bring an invisible illness to light. Let's bring the solutions to light, right? Georgette says health starts in the gut, and that's where Dr. Maggie starts. Love her. Thank you, Georgette. Love it. Thank you so much. So I would say, there's a lot of pieces to this, and I don't want to like just put a foo-foo around it, right? But I will tell you that my work in autoimmune disease really prepared me for dealing with this, because this stuff screws with your immune system. It really does. And just as a reminder, the third thing that the immune system does, besides killing germs, number 1, number 2 is trying to kill cancer cells in you. The third thing your immune system does is identify allergens and react with allergy reactions like histamines, right? So can an altered immune system affect all 3? So don't think this isn't about you, mast cell and histamine out there, or intolerances out there. Perfect. All right. What I would love to do is I would love to ask you guys, what is one big aha that you had from Joel's interview, from what I spoke about it? Okay. Type that in chat. I would love to see what the big ahas were. I also want to know, like, if you could wave a magic wand, everybody, and there was one question about long haul, POTS, dysautonomia, mast cell, histamine intolerance, hormones. If you had one burning question that you would have wanted to be answered, I want you to type it in chat. And the reason is, I read every single one of these comments, whether you're watching from YouTube, whether you're watching a short of this, whether you're watching this on Facebook or LinkedIn. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that when I do this training, I freaking answer every single one of those questions. I will not rest until I do. So I want you to write it. Our team is going to be reading it. I'm going to be reading it, and our team's going to be collecting it. So we're going to make sure that during this training, I'm going to be answering them.
And Dr. Maggie, so appreciate that you have care and compassion to want to help so many people. Can you explain a little bit more about what will happen during this workshop? So you mentioned that people can show up and they're going to have the opportunity to interact with you directly and share what's been going on with them symptom-wise.
This is really cool because I just saw Ingrid today. And I don't know how many of you guys remember, but Ingrid was in one of my live trainings that I did in November. And I remember I went through something, I think it was about food sensitivities was what the training was about. And I remember at the end of that training, she had a very strong emotional response. Because let me just get out of the screen. She had a very emotional response. She said that she had never heard that her problems were real. And she had never felt so heard, seen, acknowledged. And she also had never seen someone that had such high level of certainty and confidence that this was a solvable problem. And she wrote that in chat. And I asked if it was, she said she was really flooded with emotion and hope in a way that was almost painful, right? And I asked if she could come on screen, and she shared on the screen just like how emotionally flooded she felt. And I looked at Ingrid and I said, Ingrid, this is a solvable problem. Absolutely, we can solve this. You can thank me later. Okay? I just saw her this morning.
Everybody wants to know, how's she doing?
If Ingrid is watching, I would love for you to type in chat, and if you're willing to share. She did give us permission to share her win, but she has a whole new life. She has a whole new life. She's smiling. Her skin is glowing. She's happy. All that fatigue, all that brain fog, all that dizziness, what you're talking about, it can be absolutely gone. And the first step that people have to take is like, let me have at you. The first step that Ingrid did was she came into the workshop, and I asked for feedback questions just like this. I was answering questions. I was pulling people in the audience and saying, hey, do you want to unmic so I can speak to you and get more information? Let's come at you. And then I was going through and teaching some of these, how I love putting these together. So what Joel described is people think that there are all these different pieces of a puzzle just sitting around on a table. For me, I already see the picture. I already see all these different, I don't see different pieces. I see them different pieces, I guess, but I see already how they all fit together. And what about cutting the time it takes to get there? How would you like to get better in 2 months versus 2 years or 4 years or never? Right? So, but that requires people to recognize what the pattern is and have a system for dealing with it. So that's what I love to do. And that's what we're going to do in the workshop is I'm going to show you guys how I do that.
And there's so many questions coming in for you, Dr. Maggie, about just general things about long haul or very specific questions. And it's probably appropriate for all of these people to show up to the workshop and be able to have that dialogue then.
Yeah, these are really great questions, right? And people are bringing in mental health. How much of a mental health? For me, how people feel with long haul Joel mentioned the anxiety, right? But to me, I'm going to show you guys why this is a big hormonal problem. How many women went through perimenopause or menopause and felt suicidal, irritable, homicidal, brain foggy, right? Diagnosed with it's almost like you're having a form of dementia, right? And that's when your hormones are really rapidly changing. So guess what's happening with COVID, right? Yeah. Rapid change, decline in hormones, that changes in hormones that no one is even evaluating or realize. So for me, my work with hormones, with my hormone masterclass and in our program, literally prepared for me, because when I saw what was happening with these long haulers, I was like, there's something going on with their hormones.
You knew because you had experience with hormones already, and you knew that it was reacting similarly to other things you had already seen. So you saw
pattern recognition, right? So I see patterns. Kayla, right?
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So all right, everybody. So let's take a look at this. Perfect. This is a wrap. So if you guys liked has bringing an interview in, if you are enjoying the interviews where we bring in a guest, ooh, I just went blurry. There I am. I'm back. If you guys are enjoying that, us bringing in special guests for an interview, or bringing a face to the invisible illnesses, if you're enjoying that, type in chat because we can bring you a ton more of these. I just thought it was really great to really bring in a real life case that's like a current mystery. And I would love in the workshop to show you how I would solve a case like that, or even harder. Or okay, on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being one of the hardest cases I deal with, the symptoms in the case Joe presented is like a level maybe okay, I'll give it a 4. A level 4.
and yet when it's your own struggle, you feel like it has to be the worst and any doctor has ever seen.
But it is. Yeah.
Right.
It is. I mean, I'm sure like his sister, who's a cardiologist, I mean, when you see a patient like this is probably one of the worst cases you've seen. There's no tools that you can deal with it. But at the same time, let's talk hundreds of tools. So I'm excited to invite every single one of you to the workshop.
Well, if you know, Dr. Maggie says she eats it for breakfast. This is solvable. Everybody loves to hear that. And why not have you be one of those people who gets it solved as well? Because why suffer? You say suffering can be optional, right?
Suffering is optional. So I in no way would sit and watch someone suffer with long haul for 4 years. 4 months is too much.
Because I've seen this question asked a couple times, Dr. Maggie. Is cough something that is something to be healed and gone, or is it just something to always be managed?
Depends on the person, but it can be healed and gone.
Okay.
Right? It really depends on the person and the ability for them to be open, curious learners, to implement, to understand the data, to understand the patterns. So a lot of it depends on you. I teach the skills. I show you the data. I teach the skills. I show the patterns. Okay. All right, everybody. That is a wrap, everyone. If you enjoyed this, give me a boom in chat, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for shining a light on this, Dr. Maggie, and for putting together this workshop coming up on June 13th. You can go ahead and get signed up for that. And if you want more resources and information, book a call. Thank you for spending time on this, Dr. Maggie.
Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.